Today I wanted to show you a set of late Roman coins that, in my opinion, is one of the coolest and easiest ones for a beginner to assemble. I'm talking about the FEL TEMP REPARATIO series. FEL TEMP REPARATIO stands for Felix Temporum Reparatio, or the restoration of the good times. The happy times are here again. This series of coins was part of an overall reform of the monetary system, carried out in 348 AD under Emperors Constantius II and Constans, the two surviving children of Constantine the Great. It is an easy series to collect. We're talking about 3 different denominations, 5 different reverse types, issued under only 2 emperors. Despite these coins being very common and affordable, since they were struck in absurd quantities, the series was struck just for a few years, meaning if you're getting started on the whole thing of researching a coin's history, its historical context, trying to link what you see on your coins to historical events, researching all varieties to the designs, in my opinion, it's an easy series to collect. Yes, there are a ton of varieties you will find out there, but they all can be attributed to the main 5 types, making the whole experience less frustrating. And to make it even easier for you, in the video description I will leave a series of links of very powerful identification tools that should help you out, including a video tutorial I made a couple of years ago on how to identify late Roman coins in general. And to make a point that this channel isn't all about fancy coins in extremely fine condition, the examples you will see today are in pretty humble grade, the kinds of stuff you can find at most coin dealers, maybe even in a junk tray at a coin show. You shouldn't be paying more than 30–35 euros for these pieces, for some considerably less. I would say with patience and looking around, 15–20 euros or dollars per type, and you can complete this set with coins of very respectable condition. Maybe a little bit more for the big denominations, but not too much really. Of course, if you want to assemble a set in pristine condition, these can go up above 100 euros. But the point I want to make is, don't let any unscrupulous dealers fool you into overpaying for more mediocre examples of these coins. They are very common. So how about a bit of a historical context? How did this series come into existence? For that, we will have to go to the early 300s AD. Emperor Diocletian and his 3 co-emperors, called the Tetrarchy, instituted a complete monetary reform, abandoning the original monetary system instituted by Augustus that was completely ruined by inflation, and creating a whole new array of denominations. From these, the most common, by a huge margin, meant to be the main coin in circulation, was the Numus, a big coin of around 10 grams, primarily made out of copper with 5% silver. Over the following 50 years or so, the Tetrarchy system collapsed. Once more, the empire saw itself engulfed in civil wars and economic slowdown, and the Numus was reduced in weight and silver content over and over. I'm putting on screen now 2 other coins, both struck under Constantine, both Numi, one from his early reign and another one from his very late reign. The once mighty 10-gram Numus first gets nearly halved, weighing a little over 5 grams and around 4% silver, and the other one from late in his reign is already a joke of a coin, around 3 grams and around 1%, 2% silver. So in 348 AD, the Numus gets completely abandoned and a new series of coins is issued. The base of the system is the so-called pecunia majorina, literally meaning big coin. It weighs around 5.3 grams, with a silver content of 2.5% silver. To make small change easier, a half majorina was also introduced, weighing 4.5 grams maybe, and 1.5% silver. And finally, a 1/4 fraction, weighing around 2.5 grams, with no precious metal in it. These new coins all have the same legends, Felix Temporum Reparatio, but have 5 different design types. The full majorina features the fallen horseman and emperor on galley types, struck under Constantius II and Constans respectively. The half Majorina features the emperor with captives type struck under Constantius and the barbarian being dragged from a hut type for Constans. And finally, the quarter Majorina types had a phoenix struck for both emperors. Since it's never that simple with ancient coins, you may very well find types attributed to one emperor struck for the other. As you can see, each brother issued its own independent designs, and these had to do with some of the military expeditions they went on. Pretty brutal series visually. Other than the Phoenix type, 4 of these scenes depict a military setting and 3 straight up depict acts of violence. They were all struck in the brief period of 348 to 350 AD in the more than a dozen minting cities the empire had at that time. So okay, enough talk. Let's go over each and every single one of these types and get to know them a little bit more in detail. Let's start by the big ones, the Majorina. We start by the very popular Fallen Horseman type. Incredibly popular and full of different varieties, it features on the obverse a very nicely detailed bust of the emperor, in this case Constantius II. Notice the mullet on the back of his head, typical for Constantius. A nice pearl diadem over his head, and a very pretty fibula on his shoulder. A jeweled brooch used to hold a cape over his cuirass when on campaign. The legends read, Dominus Noster Constantius Pius Felix Augustus. On the reverse we have a scene of the emperor, or maybe a Roman soldier, leaping on the air and spearing a horseman that just fell off his horse. These coins were mostly struck under Constantius, and notice the hat on the barbarian's head. This is a typical headpiece worn by the Persians, so this coin celebrates Constantius' campaigns against the Sasanian Empire. The legends, as I've said to exhaustion, now read FEL TEMP REPARATIO, and on the lower part of the design we can always find an abbreviation of the minting city and the workshop where this coin was made. In this case, SMNB, Sacra Moneta, the mint, Nicomedia Beta, the city, Nicomedia, and the second workshop. Now let's look at a Majorina from Constans. Very different style on the bust. As we will see shortly, this was struck at a different mint, so each mint had its own engraving style. On this bust of Constans, we can differentiate him from his brother by the lack of the mullet on the back of his head. Other than that, they are pretty much indistinguishable. He also wears a pearl diadem, he has a fibula holding his cloak in place. The legends follow the same formula as his brother, they're just slightly different. Now we have Dominus Noster Constans Pius Felix Augustus. Heading to the reverse, we have the emperor aboard a galley. He holds a military standard with a Chi-Rho in one hand, an early Christian symbol, and on the other he holds a small phoenix. In some varieties, the phoenix is replaced by a tiny little goddess Victory. On the right of the emperor, we see a winged Victory, rowing the galley onto the shore. This is quite likely a reference to Constans' campaign into Britain between 342 and 343. Constans ruled the western part of the empire, a continuous stretch of land, with the exception of Britannia, so this design of a crossing of a body of water is indeed very likely to make reference to this event. At the lower part, the mint mark TES Beta for the second workshop of the Mint of Thessalonica. Now let's look at the half Majorina. Let's start by Constans first, since we just referenced his campaign on Britannia, and this coin's reverse likely also mentions it. To distinguish the half Majorina from the normal Majorina, the half piece has the emperor's bust looking left. Also, as a nice little touch, this denomination shows the emperor holding a globe in his hand, symbolizing Rome's grasp over the whole world. How authoritarian, huh? The legends are exactly like on the bigger coin, Dominus Noster Constans Pius Felix Augustus. On the reverse, we now have the emperor violently dragging a captive from his little hut. One of the theories that explain Constans' campaign in Britain is due to an attack on the upper borders of Britain by the Picts and the Scotti. Constans then moved his troops to Hadrian's Wall, secured the borders, and went on a punitive campaign in barbarian territory. So here, Visually, they degrade the image of those beyond the border by depicting them as nothing but hut dwellers, being dragged by the emperor to be sold into slavery. Interestingly, the mint mark, Const Alpha, means this coin was minted in Constantinople, all the way on the other side of the empire. Now let's look at Constantius' half majorina. We once more have Constantius' left-facing bust, holding the globe, and that's funny, once more he has his mullet. All in all, very similar coin to Constance's. The legends follow the formula: Dominus Noster, Constantius Pius Felix Augustus. The reverse also features Constantius mistreating some poor captives. Now we have two tiny men sitting on the floor next to the emperor, who wears full battle cuirass and holds his military standard. If we pay attention to the clothes of the captives, they once more wear the typical Persian hat, meaning these are likely Sasanian captives, another reference to Constantius' military campaigns on the Far East. As for the mint, we now have the letters A, M, and a beta. Antiochia Moneta Beta, or the second workshop of the Antioch Mint. And finally, for the smallest, 1/4 majorina fraction, we have this tiny little thing here. Interestingly, the smallest denomination, this quarter piece, is the rarest one to find. I mean, it isn't rare by any means, but the others are definitely more numerous, meaning this coin likely had a very small purchasing power back then, and it was either struck in small numbers, just as a complementary coin to make small change, or it was quickly removed from circulation, having its value reduced to nearly nothing by inflation as the years passed. This particular coin was struck for Constans. Just like the larger majorina, it has the bust of the emperor looking to the right, but it was impossible to mix up these two coins due to the sheer difference in size. The majorina also received a layer of silvering over it, while the quarter majorina did not receive any kind of superficial layer, having a coppery red hue when it left the mint. The reverse of this type features the phoenix. This design has a lot of different variations depending on the mint. In this case, the phoenix is on top of a mountain, but other examples have it over a globe, over a pile of rocks, etc. The head of the phoenix in this example has a tiny little ring with sun rays around it. Sometimes some different examples have like super long sun rays stretching all the way to the edges of the legend. It's a very interesting type of coin, full of variations. And when we look at the mint mark, we see Gamma Cis, so the third workshop of the mint of Siscia. Sadly, just like so many other coin types in the late empire, the FEL TEMP REPARATIO series would fall victim to inflation. The quarter and the half majorina stopped being minted around 350, and soon inflation made them obsolete. The large, full majorina kept being struck for a little longer, but in smaller size, weight, and silver content. Here we have an example from Constantius, struck around 353-354. As you can see, it is practically as big as the quarter majorina, and from 2.5% silver, this type is likely down to 1%, maybe even less, practically a copper coin. On the reverse, we can barely make out the fallen horseman design. The flan itself is too small for the whole design, and as we can see, part of the legends and the image were left out of the planchet. Looking at a reduced majorina of Constans, probably struck around the year of his death, 350, we can see this reduced version greatly simplifies his facial features. On the reverse, the emperor's head nearly touches the upper edge of the flan. The design is the same as in the big majorina, the emperor on a galley holding a little victory and his standard, with the galley being rolled on shore by a winged victory. But the design overall has been simplified due to a lack of space. It's quite common to see these types of reduced coins being found by metal detectorists. It implies two things. Either these were incredibly common, which actually is true, they are very common, but also that losing one of these coins probably was such an insignificant loss, A single coin had such little purchasing power that it simply wasn't worth for whoever lost it to try to go back and recover it. Inflation really is a nasty thing, and collecting Roman coins really reminds us of that. And there we have it, a very fun set from the late Roman Empire that I personally love, that can be easily assembled by anyone who's thinking about starting to collect Roman coins. Do you have a FEL TEMP REPARATIO? Let us know in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this little episode. Leave a like and consider subscribing if you did. Happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.